All right, what's up? We live. We live. We live. Uh-oh, there's some feedback. There's some feedback. I don't want that. All right. Okay, hopefully that's better. All right. Let's see who's here. It's like class. I know some of y'all gonna show up late. Let me see if I can see who's here. This is the first time I've actually done. Actually, this is the second time I've been live. All right, Javon's here. Caitlin, what's up? Hi. Just saw Javon just like 30 minutes ago. I'm gonna give 5 people because I know people be showing up late, and man, I was rushing after school. Yeah. So I don't know who the other 2 besides Caitlin and Javon. Might just be some people I don't know who clicked on, they saw a live video and they were like, hey. Oh, I think one is actually my wife. she had to make a channel. She does usually she uses my YouTube account. Hey baby. JC? All right, JC's here. JC, my former roommate from college, he's here. He's over on the East Coast. So what's up? See who else is going to show up. I planned for like 5 minutes to allow people to show up. So I figured I'd just greet before I officially start the live stream. Yeah, it doesn't let you talk, baby. You can't. You can just interact through the chat. Are you still at work? You just messaged me. Well, I want to thank the 5 of you that are here for coming. Oh, okay. You can't chat. Oh, okay. Yeah. She's still okay, but you can hear me though. I had to get my setup all ready. I had to move my lamp and all. Yeah. Struggle over here. I had to clean up real fast. Everybody had a good week. Everybody survived through the week. My mom says she's on. Hi, Mom. You don't you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to sign in. You can just listen. She don't know how to sign in. This is so cool. Okay, maybe one more minute, and maybe some people will trickle in. It is a live stream after all. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I feel you, Javon. Yeah, I was like, and for a while, I'm so used to using Zoom with school that I was like, how do I start the live stream? I was freaking out at the last minute. Oh, big snowstorm coming on the East Coast for JC. He's over in Maryland. Oh, you've had some nasty weather this week too. Not a snowstorm, though. We don't deal with that over here. Man, I'm getting some feedback on mine. I need to find a way to turn my own voice. Hey, what's up, Sam? I need to find a way to shut my own voice off. Okay, there. I muted myself. Good. Much better. I was confusing myself. Oh, okay. So, I want to start on time because I like to start things on time, um, just like I do in class with the students. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming, well, for logging in. You know, most of you, I think I know everybody. I don't think there's any people who don't know me. But for those of you who don't know me, maybe there's somebody who doesn't. And this is going to be recorded anyway, so I should introduce myself just in case people who don't know me eventually watch it, which they might. My name is Keith Hayden, and I am a math teacher at a charter school in Sacramento. That's my day job. My other job that I've given myself is I'm a writer. More specifically, I'm an author of this book behind me. You can see the poster that's strategically placed right next to my head, which actually that was an accident, but it turned out great because it's right next to my head. You cannot ignore it. And I've got the copies of the book here. See how I do? Well, anyway, so I wrote this book called Cereus and Limnic. And maybe some of you that heard the book, I remember the first time I told somebody, I was at a birthday party. Maybe it was 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And I told somebody the title of the book, and they were like, maybe you might want to work on that title. And I was like, I don't think so. Because I'd already liked the title because it kind of had like a mystery and an intrigue about it. But what I want to do with this live stream is I want to read just an excerpt from the book. I'm not going to read an entire chapter, but I'm going to read a part of the book. And the second goal is to talk about why I wrote the book, talk about a little bit, no spoilers. I know Mr. Newman, Sam was like, hey, I don't want to hear no spoilers. I'm not coming if I hear them spoilers. I was like, hey, I got you, man. No spoilers. I want to talk about a little bit why I wrote the book specifically, and then I want to answer any questions that you have. And if you don't have any questions, trust me, I'm very practiced in the art of stalling and the art of talking to people who are pretending to be there, i.e., my students. Sam, Caitlin, you do this too. Javon, you do it too as well. So I'm really good at it, and I can do it for a long time, especially on something that I'm passionate about, which is my book. So if you don't have any questions, not to worry. I can think of something to say for about, I don't know, 35 minutes, however long. But I wanted to start, before I read my book, I wanted to start with a quote from a book that I just got actually last night. Actually, I didn't get it. My wife bought it. I know, use those teacher moves. Right? That's right, Javon. But so my wife and I had been talking. We had seen Obama's new book, Promised Land, A Promised Land, online. And I said, oh, man, I really want to read the book. And then my wife's always ordering books, like medical books and stuff. So I thought it was a textbook when I checked the mail yesterday. It turns out it was OBZ right here. And she just kind of set it in my hands, and I was just sitting on the couch, and I was just chilling last night, real tired. And then she's like, oh, here's the book. I was like, give it here. Let me look at it. So I read the preface for this book, and I want to read you a part of the preface. It's actually like 2 sentences. And I want to read this for you, because if you haven't read this book yet, I'm guessing it's going to be a phenomenal book. I haven't read the whole thing. Can't do it in one day. But let me read this part for you. This is Obama's words. He says, and he says this of the American dream. He says, what I can say for certain is that I'm not yet ready to abandon the possibility of America, not just for the sake of future generations of Americans, but for all of humankind. For I'm convinced that the pandemic we're currently living through is both a manifestation of and a mere interruption in the relentless march toward an interconnected world. one in which peoples and cultures can't help but collide. In that world of global supply chains, instantaneous capital transfers, social media, transnational terrorist networks, climate change, mass migration, and ever increasing complexity, we will learn to live together, cooperate with one another, and recognize the dignity of others, or we will perish. The reason why I read that excerpt is because, and I told my wife, I got just kind of emotional when I read that because it may seem completely unrelated to my book, but it's not. Because I want to tell you that is one of the primary reasons I wrote my book is because I wanted to address some of the issues head on that we face in society, modern society today, by coming up with a society of my own in which an organization has attempted to address the problems that we know so well. Especially us, a lot of us on here you're my coworkers, you're my fellow teachers, and we tackle these issues every day. Inequality in education, lack of medical care, our disinformation, fake news, social media, mental health problems, all of these things, they're modern day issues that we face. And I'm not saying my book has everything. Actually, I should point up here. My book doesn't have the solutions to everything, and it doesn't outline all of the issues we face, but it does bring up questions. It talks about what's next, evolution wise. What do we want to be as a species? Where do we want to go as a society? Those are some of the questions that my book ponders, and I like to think it does it in a damn cool way by combining. If anybody knows me, I'm a very globally minded person. You probably know that I've taught myself Spanish to professional fluency. I'm teaching myself Mandarin Chinese. I have a minor in Japanese. I've traveled all extensively throughout the planet. So everywhere I go, I kind of pick up little nuggets, nits and pieces, bits and pieces of different cultures and different. I'm just an observer. I try to be that wherever I go. And that's what Cereus Limnic is. I really wanted to include different notes. I feel like a lot of literature and fiction, not only do they not primarily feature people of color, but they don't feature people's cultures. They just kind of feature characters, and the characters have a backstory, and it depends on the genre, of course. Some feature more cultures than others, but my book, I wanted the characters to have what I call a cultural weight. I wanted them to carry who they are, just like we carry who we are throughout our lives. I'm black, but I don't fit all of the black stereotypes. I fit some of them, but you're all the same way. Everybody kind of carries their cultural weight, but in a different way. It's just as the same as we all have different builds. Some of us are tall, short, whatever. So with that said, let me stop running my mouth and let me read you a little bit from my book, Cereus and Limnic. So this is chapter 6. I'm going to read for you an excerpt from chapter 6. It's called Protest, part 1. Lee walked with purpose toward the bus stop. It was only a 10-minute walk, but he was already running late for an early meeting in the old city. He needed to make up for lost time. He carried a small black briefcase with him. What it lacked in volume, it more than made up for in utility and portability. Besides, it's more than enough for everything that I need, he thought to himself as the bus approached. The bus coughed and sputtered as it lumbered to a stop, emitting thick black smoke and a vaporous sigh when the auto brake engaged. The once white sides of the vehicle had an old-style ad for a local dentist who promised whiter teeth with just one bleach treatment. The phone number was so faded that Lee couldn't make it out. Under the windows, the ad strips appeared to have been attached by hand and clung to the side as if they might fall into the street at any moment. A video image flickered onto the strip closest to Lee, advertising the latest summer action movie. It was the remake of a popular movie released 10 years ago that the film studios down south were hoping to make another big payday on. Some things never change. An elderly woman, with a grim expression on her face and a cane, hobbled toward Lee and stood beside him. There, both waited, under the sparse shelter of the otherwise abandoned bus stop. He couldn't tell if her vision was impaired in some form, or if she just didn't want to acknowledge his presence. Upon seeing the bus, she removed a worn pair of red glasses with cloudy, thick lenses and produced a small silver case from her purse. With shaking hands, she clicked open the case and pulled out an unblemished pair of silver glasses. Not long after she put the glasses on, the stern expression on her face molded itself into a crooked smile, showing yellowed teeth. Lee wasn't sure what advertisement she was viewing, but whatever it was had instantly changed her mood. He silently stepped around the woman and entered the bus. A blast of cool air from the overworked air conditioner helped to relax his turbid thoughts. The frigid air made him reminisce about how he had gotten started in his current line of work. So this particular part of the chapter has a bit of a flashback. It's pretty lengthy, so I want to make sure we have enough time for the Q&A. So I'm going to move forward in this chapter. Comfortable in his bus seat, Lee's mind focused on the message he had received only an hour prior. Could it really be happening? Order 5428? After all these years, he never thought it would occur so unexpectedly. No training scenario or exercise had prepared him or any of his colleagues for this situation. Now, essentially, they were all flying blind. He rubbed his temples with his fingers in a circular motion to help clear his head. He needed to focus on who he should meet with first when he arrived at the Capitol building. Should he speak with the governor? Or maybe the mayor might be the better choice. He allowed himself to lean back in his seat and relax his shoulders as he developed a concrete plan of action. First, he needed to call a meeting with the state leadership to calm and reassure them that he and the organization had everything under control. Next, he would need to get on a conference call with the other remaining founders to determine and how they could conduct an organized transfer of power and leadership to all of the Comvilles. That will be the hard part, and it might not go as smoothly as we surmised. Outside of the window, the bus sped past patches of open farmland south of Yuba City and was quickly approaching the newer suburbs on the west side of Lincoln. Most were single-family houses that repeated themselves in a uniform pattern, block after a block or two, with a few wealthier properties sprinkled in for those fortunate enough to be able to afford them. The entire area north of Sacramento had seen explosive population growth in the early 21st century. This necessitated a large number of homes to be thrown up fast, with little regard for how to sell them. As a result, Lee knew that over 50% of them were vacant, with few to no pending inquiries. The thought and the sight of the homes made him feel like a failure. If only we had intervened sooner. His moment of regret was interrupted by the distant chime of a bell from deep within his inner ear. The chime echoed softly, slightly beyond the edge of his awareness at first, but loud enough to make itself known. He had personally chosen the tone because it was calming and neutral, which made it easier for him to focus when he needed to use it. Identify caller. His thought triggered a prompt response from the device resting in the jacket pocket of his suit. Call from Rodan. A distant male voice spoke into his ear. Lee's neutral expression now gave a hint of uncertainty. With the events of the morning, he was unsure about the conversation he was about to have with his closest colleague and longtime friend. Whenever he thought of Rodan Mitchell, the ox came to mind. Loyal, steadfast, diligent, indomitable. These were the classic positive traits of one born in the year of the ox. Born in 2021, Lee knew that the element associated with Rodan was metal. The elemental pairing brought an image of a detailed pewter figure to Lee's mind, crafted with precision, but heavy and hard to move, especially if it was very large, like Rodan. According to dominant belief, oxen were also introverted, indecisive, and skeptical people. So focused on their gradual and unbroken march toward their objectives, they were prone to self-centeredness and sometimes had difficulty understanding and expressing their true thoughts. He knew all Chinese zodiac traits were anecdotal. They were based on thousands of years of Chinese folklore, superstition, and countless generations of parents' attempts to frighten unknowing children into becoming good people. Even with that knowledge and decades of lived experience, he still found kernels of truth in the old-fashioned beliefs. He had seen Rodin's personality and, at times, the trajectory of his life and career manifest just as the animal wheel of fate had ordained. Rodin, as an ox, was oblivious to these things. It was only natural. Call from Rodin. The voice repeated itself 3 times, providing Lee with a moment to collect his thoughts. Answer call. Rodin's voice boomed in his mind, inciting a brief feeling of nausea. Must be the new implant, Lee thought. What's your ETA? Rodin asked. I'm on the bus right now. Should arrive at the Capitol by 10:30. Gotcha. Just wanted to give you a heads up that there's an active protest scheduled for today. Is that right? What time? Our sources are saying around 11, but you know how reliable they can be. Right. Peaceful or armed? Right now, word says it's one of those peaceful groups. Some tree huggers from Napa. I don't think they should be much of a problem, but we'll keep an eye out. Break. He put a mental stop in the conversation to consider Rodin's words. A protest? Today? Most peaceful protests were scheduled weeks in advance. He hadn't read any reports or received any notifications from any of his sources about one this morning. Something was off. Continue. You still there? Rodin's voice pierced his thoughts and coincided with an abrupt lane change that the bus had to make. Lee felt bile surge up his esophagus. He swallowed hard to force it back down. Yeah, still here. Have they said anything about next steps? Nah, not yet. Still waiting on word from one of the big bosses. We still don't know which one pulled the trigger yet. Got it. We'll find out more soon enough. Okay, I'm signing off. Lee, one more thing. Watch your back out there. We don't know what's going to happen from here. I will. End call. Lee's eyes moved to the slim black briefcase stowed on the floor of the bus between his legs. It had been nearly 10 years since he used his service weapon while on the job. He stared at the case and hoped he could add another day onto that number, although he had his doubts. In nearly 30 years of service with the organization and prior to that in the military, he had received countless hours of various kinds of training. During all that time, he knew that his greatest asset in any foreign situation was his instinct. It was a skill that rarely failed him, and had even saved his life on more than a few occasions. Once again, his internal alarm was active, and warning him that today was going to be a very long day. All right, so that was part of chapter 6 of Cereus Limnic. Hopefully you enjoyed that live interpretation of the book. I really have fun reading it. I really do. Not just because it's my book. Okay, let me sip some water. It's a lot of reading, a lot of talking. Been talking all day. Actually, I gave a test, so I got out of talking today. Oh, awesome, awesome, Caitlin. Good. Happy to hear that. Yeah, I know several people that I know ordered last week just got their copy either yesterday or today. So I'm happy that, yeah, especially with the weather turning here. And oh, you liked it? Yeah, awesome. Hey, JC, that's what's up, man. Thank you. That's that Toastmasters training I had. Yeah, the Chinese zodiac. Oh man, ask my wife. She knows. Especially, and it's just ironic that uh yeah, the character Rodan was I made him born this year in 2021. Why am I teaching math? Mr. Newman? I don't. I like math too. I like a lot of things. I like a lot of different things. But yeah, he's born this year. So this happens to be the year of the ox that is coming up. If you're not aware, Chinese New Year, it changes the animal. Yeah, yep, yep. I know it. Oh man, yeah, for sure. I didn't grow up with the knowing the Chinese zodiac, but actually, my first tattoo was of the ox because I am an ox. So that's why the description was easy to write for this character because math is awesome. Yes. Oh, thank you very much. Welcome, uh, Black Science Fiction Society. I think I know who it is, but I'm glad you were able to tune in. I'm glad to have you listening to this live stream. So I'm gonna throw it to the peanut gallery. Oh, thanks, baby. Appreciate you. My wife just saying nice things about me because she have to. Nah, I'm just kidding. Uh, so I'm gonna do it just like I do in class. Questions? What did you think? I tried to read a chapter that kind of showed you a little bit of the sci-fi elements. That's why it is a sci-fi book. But it's not like genre fiction sci-fi. It's more like literary fiction, if I'm honest. So yeah, as you can see, there's a couple of commentary. Got the Yuba City in there. As you can see, I threw a shout out to, you know, the little town I call home right now, Lincoln. It's in there. Sacramento's in there. So yeah, and it introduced two of the main characters. So that was pretty cool. So questions. What do you got for me? We got 30 minutes. Hit me. I'm gonna plug my laptop in. Make sure I don't die during this live stream. That would be not good. Oh, and by the way, so I put on my website that I was having a giveaway, which I can still do. I'm down to give stuff away because I like giving things away. And some of you, I gifted the book, which I'm happy I did because I really hope you enjoyed the book. But what I put on my website, if you go to my website, keithayden.net, you can see the details of this giveaway that is supposed to be happening today. But I'm gonna be real, I didn't get any entrance. Nobody, nobody sent me nothing. That's cool because y'all gonna have a chance. If you don't have the book, or if I haven't already gifted you a book, or if you haven't already bought one, which I know most people on the stream have, you have a chance to get a free copy of Cereus Limnic. All right. Yes, Sam. I will answer you just a second. So basically, what I did was I have a podcast that is connected to this book. It's called Cereus Limnic Podcast. So if you search on any major podcast provider, Google Podcast, Spotify, whatever, you can listen. If you listen to episodes 14 and 15, which I just put out just a few days ago, 15 I just put out yesterday, then you can find the codes, whatever. And then if you put the code in the chat right now, you have a chance to win this poster sitting right next to my head, or a free signed copy of the hardcover book. And then I have e-copy code that I'm willing to give out. So you can listen to it right now if you multitask. I don't know if you're using your phone. Okay, let me answer some of these questions. All right, we got questions. Sam asks, motivation for writing the book. So like I said, like I really wanted to, it started because I had these ideas. It really started on a trip to Korea. So years ago, when I was in the military, I went on a short trip. We call it a temporary duty, a TDY, to South Korea. And I noticed that there was a lot of construction going on, and they tend to build like these really tall high-rise buildings over there because they don't have as much space as we do here in America. So I noticed this and I was like, man, we're always building new stuff. So what would happen if we stopped building stuff? And wouldn't it be cool if there was like this like Luddites, but they're like anti-capitalism. They're like anti-growth. So that's where I started. I started with this idea of, they were originally called the deconstructionists. And then I developed it into part of the plot of Cereus Limnic. So as I was tackling those issues, because originally, and most people don't know this, but I originally wanted to call it Cereus Limnic, a post-capitalist tale. Post-capitalist tale, because I wanted to imagine a society where we moved beyond the capitalism that we all know and love, right? The winner takes all, the one with the most money wins. If you don't have money, you can't survive, that type of thing, right? So I wanted to like imagine a world where we moved past that. So that's what I tried to do in Cereus Limnic. So I ended up writing from the perspective in the future of a society where this movement or this organization has already taken root in society. So most of the story is from the lens of people who are involved or are in some way wrapped up in this society that I've created. But there are, of course, mentions, as you saw, there are, of course, mentions of our society as we know it today. And I'm not going to spoil anything from the book. I'm going to leave it for you to discover how that commentary plays out. But good question, Sam. Okay, JC, what inspired the ad on the bus? Yeah, so JC's just kind of, he's the guy in the question, like in the audience, he's the plant, right? Because this guy, he's already read the book, so he already knows what's going to happen. So he's like feeding me questions. We used to have this when I was in the military. Like general would come and visit, and nobody wants the general to be standing up there looking bad, right? So there's always this airman or something like A1C, low ranking, just like, hey, nudge them, hey, ask a question. So they stand up. Nah, that's what JC doing right now. Anyway, what inspired the ad strip on the bus? So I was trying to think of, this was my attempt to be very futuristic and somewhat sci-fi. Actually, there's a bunch of ads on buses over in Asia. So when I went to Singapore, actually, they always have these ads. And sometimes they're like kind of like changing ads to where they're changed, and one second it's a phone number, next second it's like an ad for a movie or something. So I wanted to like, what would it be like if you could just see any ad that you want, kind of like we do on YouTube now, right? We were just talking about ads with the students yesterday at my school, and we were talking about, hey, what ads annoy you? What's your least favorite ad or something? And it's kind of different, right? Because I was like, they don't all see the same ads. They all see different stuff just based on what their parents see, what they watch. So kind of interesting because, back in my day, like we all saw the same ads pretty much. We all saw the same annoying. I remember those Campbell's soup ads, like the Christmas one where he's frozen as a snowman and then he eats Campbell's soup and he's like, and then he just melts. I remember that one. Anyway. All right, hey, what's up, brother? Okay, so my brother / publisher, I think it's him. I think he's in there. What's up, Johnny? Thank you so much for helping me bring this book to life. Yeah, it's him, AK1. All right, Javon, I've heard you say your military experiences influenced your book. What was your role in the military, and how did it come into play in your writing? Great question. Woo, man. So my role in the military, so I had 2 jobs when I was on active duty. My first job was a force support officer. So I was essentially a personalist, and it was about as eventful as it sounds, but necessary, right? It was a good job. It was a great way to start. and I got to really lead airmen in that capacity right after college. So it was awesome. And then my second job, I was a special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And if you don't know what that is, it's a law enforcement entity that investigates felony level crimes that deal with the military, specifically the Air Force. So we are on the same level. We have the same badge and credentials and the same training as FBI agents. Most people I equate it to NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Most people know that because of the popular show. We never really got a show. We got some mentions in a few movies, and it was just kind of nobody remembers Eagle Eye, but I do. They had an OSI agent in there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Javon's saying he remembers the Campbell soup ad. Cool. So, yeah, that was my military experience. So, as you can imagine, as a law enforcement agent, I saw a lot. And not only was I a law enforcement agent, I was a law enforcement agent overseas. So I did most of my probationary agent time in Japan, in Okinawa, Japan. So that was amazing. But a lot of my experiences that I put into the book, like the last part about Lee's instinct, we're talking about this instinct that he has that. So I wanted to create this character to where he has that, right? Because I feel like that's one of the things my training gave me. And in general, military training gives you is this kind of this instinct for trouble, for things that are going wrong. And you're meant to respond, you're trained to respond and act on that instinct, depending on the context that you're in. So yeah, and then of course my travels throughout the military, just my time in Asia, in Japan. I went to China while I was over there. Then of course, I met my wife, and my wife grew up. Spent a large part of her childhood in Singapore, so I've been to Singapore several times now. So through her and her family, well, our family, I've been to Malaysia, spent some time there. So yeah, lots of Asian influence, but that's not the only influence I have in there. I got a few tricks up my sleeve, So you have to read the book to find out the rest of them. All right. Yeah, appreciate you having my back, JC. Yeah, this is going really well, by the way. Man, this is fun. Javon asked, did you find inspiration in any other sci-fi authors and stories? That's interesting. That's the first time I've actually thought about this question. I actually don't. I mean, I've read like Ender's Game. I actually have a copy of Ender's Game on my bookshelf behind me. I really don't pay attention to other authors. I read a lot, and I read very widely. Very widely. I read fiction in other languages. I read stuff from other countries, from foreign authors. So that's where kind of my inspiration comes from. So my work ends up being kind of a mishmash of cultures, which I like to portray that because, like I said, I want the story to hit most different notes, not the same kind of tune, that a lot of novels have, which is just, if it's a novel written by an American, then you have mostly American characters, it's written from mostly an American perspective, and it's written mostly for Americans to understand. So my novel takes a little bit of a spin, and one of my goals, I told my wife, is that, or I told my brother this, and I told my wife before too, that my goal is to where I hope that you can't really tell that a Black American wrote this book. I hope it's very hard for you to tell, like, okay, where is this guy from? Because sometimes it's really easy to tell. You read certain genre fiction and you're like, okay, this is from American perspective, clearly. But it would make my day if somebody finished the book and was like, man, that was really awesome that you wrote from the perspective of a woman, like, and there's several characters like in Cereus Limnic. You wrote from the perspective of an Asian man, an Asian girl, like this really, and that's another reason why I wrote the book, because it really challenged me as an author, as a writer, to write some of these characters that obviously are far departures from who I am, from my background and my upbringing. So it's pretty cool. So to answer your question, Javon, I don't really have like heavy influences from other authors. In fact, it kind of messes me up to like get like too much feedback as I'm writing. Like I kind of need to cloister myself just in my own thoughts, because I'm always getting new input, different sources. Okay. Oh man, my mom's asking me a question. So you know it's gonna be good. How long did it take me to write the book? Oh, okay, it was a simple question. So it took me. I started writing in May of 2019. That was the first time I remember outlining um, the draft of what would become the first draft. So I made my outline, and then I wrote that entire summer, pretty much no breaks, every day. I was trying to get at least 1,000 words. Well, actually, I was trying to get 500 words, but I would often end up with around 1,000 words a day just writing. And then stopped it that fall because I got a job, tutoring job, and then I was still in my teaching credential program, and then picked it back up again in the fall. Actually, when I went home, huh? So I talked to Ajani, and Ajani was like, "You gonna finish, or what? What the hell are you doing?" I was like, ah, "All right, I'll finish. All right, whatever." So I picked it back up again last January, about a year ago, and then I finished. I remember finishing the first draft about a year ago, and then I was just writing whenever I could get a chance because I was doing student teaching. So obviously I was very busy. And then of course COVID hit, and COVID was a blessing in disguise for the book because it gave me the time to finish the second draft and then subsequently the third draft. And by last August, I was done, completed manuscript. So about a year and a half, which is not bad. Very, of course, first novel, so first fiction novel. Not a bad time to get the full novel. And I've had people comment like, "Man, I can barely read nearly 500 pages, let alone write 500 pages." So, I mean, it was all like, of course, I didn't write 500 pages at once. You know, it was like a gradual process of just coming back, and then of course the revision. That was probably the toughest part for me, is going back and filling plot holes, making sure there's continuity, making sure certain messages were clear. And my brother, who's on this call, he helped me with that. So, CSNE, you know. All right, what other questions? You'll make me dig into my bag of tricks, my emergency kit of questions. We still got about 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because I'm gonna do a brief wrap up. Did anybody get the code? Y'all don't like free stuff? Is that what you're saying? Hmm. Oh, right. Javon, coming with the questions. Have I written any other works? Yes, I have. And shame on me, I didn't have a copy at the ready. But my first book was actually called The Tower of Babbling. It's a language resource, and it's right over there. You know what? I'm just gonna get it. It's my live stream. I can do what I want, right? Okay. So yeah, my first book, I did write another book, and it came out about 2 years ago. It's called The Tower of Babbling. So it's a language resource. So because if you know me, you know one of my passions is learning foreign languages and studying foreign languages. So I've studied foreign languages on my own for well over a decade, and I've been studying them like through school, of course, high school, college, since I was in high school. So long time. And I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work, and what's brought me to my current level of fluency in Spanish and with Mandarin Chinese and Japanese. So I wrote this book, which is basically like a how-to guide to learn languages. Oh, you got to listen to the Cereus Limnic podcast. If you listen to it, yeah, the code's at the very end. So I guess you could fast forward if you in a pinch, right? Get the code, get the free stuff. Yeah, but yeah, I wrote the other book. And what do I hope to write next? And JC is also asking, will there be a sequel? Yes, there will be a sequel to Cereus Limnic. and that is what I plan to write next. I went back and forth. Originally, when I finished the manuscript, I did not plan on writing a sequel, but I just still have stuff to say about society, and specifically, it's not really a spoiler, but I'm really going to focus in on education. Thanks to my experience now in my job as a teacher, full time. Yeah, I really want to, and I do kind of comment a little bit on education in Cereus Limnic, but the next book will really focus heavy on education. That's all I'm going to say here. If you want to know more, join my newsletter at keithhayden.net. Then you'll learn more about what my next book going to be. Enough said about that. And let's see. AK, Dr. Ajani, my brother, he asks, what was the biggest difference in your writer's frame of mind between this book and your nonfiction language book? Oh, man, he come. I should have known he was going to throw me a tough question. All right. So the biggest difference for my frame of mind is, and it's different. It's kind of like doing just two different things completely. So with the nonfiction book, it was very easy to write because it's just autobiographical pretty much. I mean, I'm using anecdotes from different languages that I've learned. I'm using anecdotes from techniques that I've tried, from tools that I've used for foreign languages. So it was pretty easy. You know, it's just, hey, write what you already know and then put it in a book form. That was it. Cereus Limnic, for fiction, you are in a different frame of mind because this one was just like one giant lesson. And of course, it's like a unit plan. You know, us teachers, we know these types of words. It's like a unit plan. This is like several different lessons, and you got to have a story on top. So it turned out that writing fiction, even though you're making a bunch of mess up, right? It's a lot harder to actually do it in a coherent way that makes sense, because the lessons in here, I want people to get to the lessons. I want you to get to the lesson of what I'm trying to say, right? But I got to do it in such a way, you know, us teachers, we know, you got to throw a little can of sugar on top of your lesson. You can't just, you know, you can't just feed them the lesson. It don't work, especially in math. So my frame of mind was basically, hey, get a coherent narrative together and then embed the lessons in, but always the lessons. And if you listen to my podcast, you're going to get tired of me saying the word lesson, because I do say it a lot, but it's really hard for me to just write an entertaining story just for fun. It's hard for me to do that. I kind of got to have a reason and talk about different things as I'm going. Great question, bro. Appreciate you. Always love. Any other questions? And got about, y'all doing well. I haven't had to bust out my emergency kit. Or maybe I'm just doing well. I'm keeping you engaged. Now you see what my students have to deal with. Student talk time tends to be low in my class. I'm always talking. They're like, Mr. Hayden won't shut up. He won't give us a chance to talk. Well, if y'all would turn y'all's freaking cameras on, y'all might be able to say something. All right. Any other questions? We still got about maybe 5 minutes left before I'm gonna start wrapping up. Anybody get the code? I don't even know who's out there. We got up to 12 people watching. I think somebody I didn't know randomly walked in here or clicked in here, which is fine, which is great. I'm all about getting more people. Let me see if I got any questions on my phone. Oh wait, my mom asked me a question. I didn't see it, Mom. Sorry, Mom. She says it takes place in 2062. Any reason why? No, actually. That was just This is actually kind of a random year, but it was more of a year to get. Actually, let me go back. It wasn't random completely. It was more of let me get far enough into the future to where some of this technology and some of this speculative um, things that I do in the story could be viable, but let me not go so far to where it's just totally unrecognizable. Because that's one of the things that I've mentioned this in one of the podcast episodes. I'm like, I don't think back to 40 years ago. You know, it's 1980 81. Could you really imagine we gonna have a live stream? We gonna have phones like this? No, hell no. You ain't gonna get it. You ain't gonna guess right. I know I'm not gonna guess right. So I kind of took the guesswork out and I was like, make it far enough to where we could conceivably have some of these technologies, but then also have that kind of what if factor of what if we could do this, and that's one of the powers of fiction. And I actually got that from Brandon Sanderson. So he's a fantasy author, and I listened to some of his talks as I was writing last year, and he's like, that's why I like fiction, because you can talk about real issues, you can have conventional stuff in there, but you can also have dragons. And that was kind of my thing. I can also have whatever the hell else I want. So that's why. Good question, Mom. Caitlin, can you tell us a little bit more about the characters? Oh man, that might take a while, but I'll tell you about the three main characters. So there's three main characters. Actually, Lee is more of like a secondary character. Lee Ma, he's the father to one of the main characters, and her name is Jinghua Ma. She is a 17-year-old 17-year-old girl. She's one of the main characters in the book, and she does 17-year-old girl things until she kind of becomes wrapped up in the plot of the story. So that's all I'll say here. And then, of course, there's Rodan Mitchell, who you heard the intro of him. That's actually the first introduction of him in the book. So you pretty much got Rodan's backstory. Well, you got part of his backstory. He's a former Army veteran. He's also a former cop, and he works in the Cereus liaison office. So, black guy, black character. Had to put him in there, and I'm glad I'm glad I did too. I'm definitely glad I did. That was a good call. And yeah, he's kind of a middle-aged, middle manager type character, and then of course he's got a huge part in the story. And then the third main character is Noelani Acosta. She's of Mexican and Hawaiian descent, and she definitely plays the part of she's kind of like my hard-hitting character. She's also a veteran. She's a veteran of the U.S. Space Force, which I put that in there before the actual Space Force TV show with Netflix, and then of course the Space Force was just formed last year, or in 2019 it was formed. But yeah, I put that in there before those things were a thing. So I like to think I got ahead of that. But so with these three main characters, what I wanted to do was kind of, and you'll see that Cereus Limnic kind of follows a flow of, if you've played any JRPGs, if you've played Final Fantasy, if you've played Breath of Fire, if you played any of these JRPGs, you'll see that you kind of had this flow to where you kind of build this party up, and then they're kind of band together to deal with events that come up in the book. So it's not directly like that. I don't want to say like it's a literary RPG, because I know there's a genre of fiction to where people are writing these literary RPGs to where it's literally a freaking book RPG in a book form. That's not what Cereus Limnic is, but it just kind of takes the soul of that. And there are many other secondary characters that I'm so proud of that I could spend a long time talking about these secondary characters. There's so many good ones. There's Van Tran. He's kind of he's a comic relief character, but he's not just comic relief. I don't like too much comic relief, but he's in there to kind of lighten the mood. I got Lily Olakalani Acosta. She's Noah's mother. She's a really big character, probably my favorite character in the book. Really, really proud of what I did with her. Okay, I don't want to spoil too much. I'm not saying anything about these characters, but yeah. That's a little bit more about some of the characters. Good question, Caitlin. Um, what other forms of entertainment inspired this story? Oh, so much, so many. TV shows, Tiny's drama. I just am like a sponge for inspiration. I take inspiration from everywhere. I'm just one of those. I'm always watching. I'm always paying attention to what can I. I write things down. Just like, what did I write down the other day? I just wrote down something yesterday. The windstorm that we had here in California. So if you're not here in California, in Central Valley, had a huge windstorm like 2 nights ago, and it was just unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it since I've been here, and I'm like, man, that's fodder. Like, I wrote it down. The windstorm, like that's a great thing. Like, how often do you see a cool windstorm like that? So I just take different things. Some stuff I see in the news, some stuff is YouTube videos. Sometimes it's just in real life. You just run into people like this doctor that I see. He's a character. He's perfect fodder for the book. He's just amazing. The guy. He comes in after reading one of my tests. He's just like, interesting. It was just cool. I was like, you just made the book, man. You don't even know it. So those of y'all that are watching, be careful sometimes. You don't know. Like sometimes if you just be a little too raw and used to yourself, part of you might be in the book. I don't directly put people in the book because I don't like doing that. I think that's too limiting because obviously we're real people and real people don't act like characters in a book or in a movie. So I need that kind of creative control, creative license to do what I do in the book world. But I definitely start with foundations for scenarios and people that I see. So never know, might be you. All right, last question. What is my baby? Thanks for asking a question, baby. What is your favorite part about being an author? Just what I just said. Just kind of being able to literally write your own story. I journaled I have them here. I journaled for like 14 years, off and on, like not off and on, pretty regularly throughout my military time, throughout my time as a cadet at the Air Force Academy. I journaled a lot. And that's where I kind of honed my craft. And I would take chances. I would write in third person. I would write poetry. I would just kind of just make it my own. And those times where I was kind of extrapolating events that happened in my real life, where I would just kind of like, well, what if this happened? Or what if that? And it would just kind of become its own story. I really enjoyed that. I really like that. And I like that about writing fiction in general. It's definitely freeing to be able to, address real issues, but then do it in such a way that is entertaining to people, that is engaging to people. Because if I had originally gone with my first instinct, which was to write like an essay about all of these societal issues and all of, nobody's going to read it. I'm just a random black guy. Like, who the hell am I, to start? Who's going to read this? But in this form, it takes on a life on its own. It's completely its own thing. And the story, we learn through story. From the time we're just so small, the stories are what stick with us. We were talking about the Chinese zodiacs. It's a story. You tell about these animals and whatever, and this is you. It's just like the regular zodiac signs. Like some of the students were talking today, they were like, "Oh, I'm a Leo. I'm this." That's a story, and we really latch on to those things. So honestly, that's my favorite part about being able to do it, and just being able to work from home too. You don't have to go in the office, you just kind of, you're essentially always working. And my wife will tell you that I tend to be always working. When she tells me to rest, I try and rest and take my vitamins, drink water. Right? Okay, so it's already 5:00. Man, this has been so fun. I need to do, what do y'all think? I need to go live again sometime. Invite y'all again. Get more people. Get more people to do this. This is a lot of fun. What I will say is thank you for giving me your time. Yeah, it was great, Javon, and I appreciate all of my ATSA coworkers coming out and supporting me. I really hope you enjoyed the book. I have some. What did I write for my closing? Oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. You know how they say, smash that like button. You know about my story. Oh, nice, nice. Love to hear about more of my stories acquiring different languages. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh man, just so many. Yeah, Caitlin for sure. Um, yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you want. I'm not very active actually on YouTube, I'll be honest. But I'm very active on Twitter. So on Twitter, oh yeah, yeah, go check it out. It is now newly on Amazon. The Tower of Babbling. It's yeah, you can buy it, the paperback on Amazon, and there's e-copies all over. It's been out for a couple of years, so Barnes and Noble, whatever, you can find it pretty easily. Uh, Twitter, I am very active, so you can find me at KH_author, or I have another account, which is like my language account, which I use more for like doing languages, at KH_way to lang, way to lang, WAYTOLANG. More info on my website, keithhayden.net, and listen to the Cereus Limnic podcast. You know, I not a lot of people have found the podcast yet, but it's really I keep the episodes under 20 minutes long, and I just kind of do what I do every day on Zoom and just talk to myself about different issues, about stuff related to the book. And yeah, it's just kind of bonus content. So you can read the book first and then listen to the podcast for extra insight, or you can listen to the podcast for the book, whatever. But most of you already have the book anyway, so hopefully you like what you've heard, and you enjoyed the book. This was a lot of fun, man. This was awesome. So I got to get ready to go. I don't want to hold you away from your weekends. Thank you for those 4 of you who thumbs up this. If you liked this content, and I'm going to have this video up for people who missed the live stream, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for believing in my book, believing in my work, and the issues. I want everyone to come away from this, from reading Cereus Limnic, more of a deep reader, because I tend to be a deep reader. Most people I know are deep readers. They look in between the lines. They don't just read the words on the book, on the page or on the screen. So I hope people really like find something they can latch onto. That not the flash or the battle scenes, even though those are cool as hell. No, they good. But I hope they walk away like at least thinking about some of the things that I talk about, like the future of humanity, the future of society, because they're important questions. They're important things that we need to consider as a species, as a people, as a planet. I bid you farewell. Have a good weekend.